What if your life is not falling apart? What if it is finally rearranging itself into something that fits you? What if the delays, disappointments, endings, and periods of confusion were not the evidence that you had been forgotten, but the moments that forced you to become more honest about what you actually need? Because there's a point in life when you stop asking, why isn't everything working? And you begin asking a much deeper question. What if I've been trying to make the wrong things work? Maybe you've spent years trying to hold together a relationship that continually exhausted you. Maybe you kept chasing an opportunity because you needed it to prove your worth. Maybe you built your identity around being strong, dependable, successful, or needed. Maybe you became so focused on surviving that you forgot to ask what kind of life would actually feel good to live. And then something changes. You become tired of forcing, tired of explaining, tired of chasing, tired of trying to convince people, tired of turning every disappointment into a personal failure. And slowly, almost invisibly, you begin to let go. This is where a new chapter can begin. Not because the universe has promised that everything will suddenly go your way, not because every problem will disappear, but because you're finally becoming less willing to participate in the patterns that kept you stuck. You're changing the relationship you have with yourself, and when that changes, your choices change. When your choices change, your life begins to move in a different direction. Maybe that is what it means to say, you've entered the chapter where it all goes right. Not that everything will be perfect, but that more of your life begins to align with who you actually are. And there are signs that this shift may already be happening. The first sign is that you're no longer willing to betray yourself for peace. For a long time, perhaps you were the person who kept everything together. You apologized first, you compromised first, you understood everyone, you stayed quiet, you swallowed your disappointment, you accepted behavior that quietly damaged you because you were afraid of what would happen if you finally said enough. And people may have praised you for being understanding. But perhaps what they called understanding was sometimes self-abandonment. You learned to ask, what will keep everyone else happy, instead of, what is right for me? And eventually, something inside you changes. You can no longer pretend. You can no longer say yes when your entire body is saying no. You can no longer keep explaining away the same behavior. You can no longer keep sacrificing your peace just to prevent conflict. This is not necessarily becoming selfish. It can be the beginning of self-respect. You begin realizing that peace built on your silence is not real peace. A relationship that survives only because you continuously disappear is not true connection. And the life that requires you to betray your own needs every day is not sustainable. So you begin setting boundaries. You say, that doesn't work for me. I need some space. I can't do that. I don't want this anymore. And at first you may feel guilty. That is normal. Especially if you've spent years believing that being good means being agreeable. But guilt does not always mean you've done something wrong. Sometimes guilt simply appears when you stop following an old pattern. And one day, saying no will no longer feel like a crisis. It will simply feel like information. That is when something has changed. The second sign is that you stop chasing what continually runs away from you. This may happen in relationships. You stop sending the extra message, stop trying to convince someone, stop analyzing their silence, stop asking what you did wrong, stop trying to become more lovable so that someone finally chooses you. You begin asking a different question. Why am I working so hard to be chosen by someone who is not choosing me? That question hurts, but it can also free you, because there's an enormous difference between love and pursuit. You can love someone deeply and still recognize that the relationship is not healthy for you. You can care about someone and still stop chasing. You can miss someone and still choose not to return. You can forgive someone without giving them access to you again. This is emotional maturity. You stop measuring your worth by someone's willingness to give you what you want. And something beautiful happens. Your energy returns. The attention you spent monitoring someone else's behavior becomes available for your own life. You begin thinking, what can I create? What can I learn? How can I take care of myself? What kind of relationship actually feels safe? And the moment you stop chasing what is inconsistent, you create room for what is consistent. The third sign is that you're becoming less interested in proving yourself. Maybe this has been one of the strongest motivations in your life. You wanted to succeed so people would finally respect you. You wanted to become wealthy so nobody could ever look down on you again. You wanted to become attractive so someone would regret losing you. You wanted to become successful so your family would finally recognize your value. You wanted to become impressive because somewhere inside you believed, then I'll finally be enough. But what happens when you begin healing? You realize that proving yourself is exhausting. You begin asking, if nobody applauded this achievement, would I still want it? That is a powerful question, because it separates desire from validation. Maybe you still want success, but now you want it because the work matters. Maybe you still want money, but now you want freedom rather than status. Maybe you still want a relationship, but now you want mutual love rather than proof that you are desirable. Maybe you still want recognition, but now you care more about meaningful contribution than attention. The goal didn't necessarily disappear. The reason changed. And when the reason changes, the emotional weight changes too. You stop demanding that success heal your insecurities. You stop demanding that relationships prove your worth. You stop demanding that the world confirm your identity, and you become freer. The fourth sign is that your nervous system begins learning what peace feels like. This can be subtle. You wake up and realize you didn't spend the first hour worrying. You receive a message and don't immediately panic. Someone is quiet and you don't assume they are angry. You make a mistake and you don't spend the entire day attacking yourself. You have an empty afternoon, and instead of feeling guilty, you rest. These moments may seem small, they are not. If you have spent years living in stress, your nervous system can become accustomed to urgency. Chaos feels familiar, pressure feels normal, hypervigilance feels productive, and peace can initially feel strange. You may even create problems because problems are familiar. You may start checking, overthinking, planning, analyzing, searching for something to fix. But gradually you learn, nothing is wrong right now. And you let that be true. You sit quietly, you breathe, you walk, you eat, you sleep, you laugh. You allow a normal day to remain normal. This is not laziness. It is a nervous system learning flexibility. You don't have to be constantly activated to be productive. You don't have to live under pressure to feel valuable. You don't have to earn the right to relax. And perhaps this is one of the greatest signs that your next chapter is arriving. Peace no longer scares you. It begins to feel like home. The fifth sign is that your standards rise without your heart becoming harder. This is important. Some people respond to disappointment by becoming cynical. They decide, never trust anyone, everyone leaves, love isn't real, people only care about themselves. But healing doesn't have to make you cold. It can make you discerning. You still believe in connection. You simply stop accepting every form of connection. You begin noticing consistency. Do their words match their actions? Do they respect your boundaries? Can they apologize? Can they take responsibility? Can they be happy for your growth? Can you be honest without punishment? These become more important than chemistry alone. You realize that intensity is not necessarily intimacy. Uncertainty is not necessarily passion. Drama is not necessarily depth. Sometimes healthy love feels surprisingly quiet. You know where you stand. You don't have to decode every message. You don't have to earn affection. You don't have to become smaller to keep someone close. Your standards are not becoming impossible. They are becoming aligned with self-respect. And that changes who you allow into your life. The sixth sign is that you are becoming comfortable with not knowing. This is one of the deepest forms of trust. You don't know what will happen next. You don't know whether every plan will work. You don't know whether someone will stay. You don't know exactly what your future looks like. But you no longer need to know everything before moving. You say, I don't know, and I can handle not knowing today. This doesn't mean becoming careless. You still plan, you still prepare, you still make wise decisions. But you stop trying to control every possible outcome. You begin trusting your ability to respond. If something changes, you adapt. If something ends, you grieve. If you make a mistake, you learn. If you need support, you ask. Your confidence is no longer based on certainty, it is based on capacity, and that is a powerful transition. Because life will never give you complete guarantees, but you can become someone who knows how to meet uncertainty without losing themselves. The seventh sign is that you begin enjoying your own life instead of constantly waiting for it to start. This sounds simple, but many people live in anticipation. When I get the relationship, I'll be happy. When I make more money, I'll relax. When I move, I'll feel free. When I heal, I'll start living. When everything is fixed, then I'll enjoy myself. And suddenly years have passed. You were always waiting for the future. But one day, something changes. You realize this moment counts too. You enjoy your coffee. You take a walk. You call someone you love. You listen to music. You cook. You sit outside. You laugh. Nothing extraordinary has happened, and yet you feel alive. This is a major shift because you stop postponing your life. You still have goals, you still want change, but your present is no longer treated as a waiting room. You begin noticing what is already here. And perhaps this is what abundance actually feels like, not having everything. Being present enough to experience something without immediately needing it to become more. The eighth sign is that you start attracting less chaos because you stop participating in it. Again, not in the magical sense. Your choices change. You stop responding immediately to every provocation. You stop arguing with people committed to misunderstanding you. You stop rescuing people who repeatedly refuse responsibility. You stop explaining boundaries to people who don't respect them. You stop returning to the same emotional situations, hoping for a different ending. And when your behavior changes, the environment around you can change too. Some people leave. Some relationships become healthier. Some opportunities disappear because you are no longer willing to accept them. And something remarkable happens. You have more space, more time, more energy. And then you can finally hear yourself. You can think, create, rest, build, love. Perhaps what felt like bad luck was sometimes a pattern you kept participating in because it was familiar. And when you become conscious of the pattern, you gain the ability to interrupt it. That is not fate changing, that is behavior changing. And behavior can change a life. If you recognize these signs, I want you to comment 777. Not because this number guarantees a breakthrough. Let it be a symbol of intention. Let 777 mean, I am ready to stop repeating what hurts me. I'm ready to trust myself. I'm ready to choose peace. I'm ready to build a life that feels true. Use the number as a reminder, but remember that the real transformation comes through your actions. The boundary, the decision, the conversation, the habit, the rest, the support, the courage to walk away, the courage to stay, the willingness to begin again. Now there's something else that happens when your life begins moving in a healthier direction. You stop asking why everything happened to you. You begin asking what you want to do with what happened. This is not about pretending pain was good. It wasn't. Some experiences were unfair. Some losses were unnecessary. Some people hurt you. Some chapters should never have happened. You don't need to turn suffering into a beautiful story, but you can refuse to let suffering become your permanent identity. You can say, "This affected me. It taught me something. It changed me. And I still get to choose what happens next." That is a powerful form of agency. You are not responsible for everything that happened to you, but you can become responsible for how you respond now. And that is where the new chapter becomes yours. Maybe you start taking your health seriously. Maybe you stop working yourself into exhaustion. Maybe you finally seek professional support. Maybe you stop surrounding yourself with people who constantly make you question your worth. Maybe you pursue work that aligns more closely with your values. Maybe you reconnect with creativity. Maybe you forgive yourself for not knowing what you know now. These are not mystical events, they are decisions, and decisions create direction. One of the most beautiful signs of change is that you start trusting small progress. Before, you wanted a dramatic transformation. Now you appreciate a quiet improvement. You slept better. You said no. You didn't react. You had the difficult conversation. You took the walk. You asked for help. You didn't return to the person who repeatedly hurt you. You rested before you collapsed. You finished one important task. You spoke to yourself with kindness. These may look insignificant. They are not. A life changes through repeated small choices. And perhaps this is why your new chapter may arrive quietly. There may be no dramatic moment when everything suddenly becomes perfect. Instead, you wake up one day and realize, I am not living the way I used to. You are calmer, more selective, more honest, less desperate, less reactive, more present. You don't chase as much. You don't explain as much. You don't prove as much. You don't fear silence as much. And you begin to understand something profound. The goal was never to control life. The goal was to build a relationship with yourself strong enough to meet life. Because life will still disappoint you sometimes. There will still be unexpected changes. There will still be difficult people. There will still be uncertainty. The difference is that you are no longer willing to abandon yourself because of them. You stay, you listen, you choose. And perhaps that is what everything going right really means. It doesn't mean everything you want happens exactly when you want it. It means you stop making yourself wrong whenever life doesn't go according to plan. You stop treating rejection as proof of unworthiness. You stop treating delays as proof that you are forgotten. You stop treating endings as proof that your life is over. You start seeing them as information. This relationship is not working. This environment is draining me. This goal no longer matters. This pace is unsustainable. This behavior violates my values. This identity is too small. Those realizations can redirect an entire life. And sometimes, the greatest improvement is simply becoming willing to let the wrong things go. Now imagine waking up tomorrow with one new belief. I do not have to force my life. Imagine approaching people differently. Instead of, how do I make them like me, you ask, do we genuinely fit? Instead of, how do I keep this person from leaving, you ask, is this relationship healthy for both of us? Instead of, how do I prove myself, you ask, what matters to me? Instead of, how do I control the future, you ask, what is the next wise step? Instead of, why am I still struggling, you ask, what is this experience teaching me about how I want to live? Those questions create different lives. And perhaps this is the deepest shift of all. You stop waiting for external circumstances to give you permission to feel worthy. You stop saying, when I achieve this, then I will be enough. You begin saying, I am already worthy, and I can still grow. That changes ambition. You can pursue success without desperation. You can love without possession. You can work without making work your identity. You can rest without guilt. You can change without shame. You can say no without believing you're cruel. And when that happens, you're no longer fighting yourself while trying to improve yourself. You're growing from self-respect. There may also be moments when you feel guilty for becoming happier. This is worth noticing. Perhaps someone in your life is still struggling. Perhaps your old identity was built around being the one who rescued everyone, and now you're choosing yourself. You may wonder, am I becoming selfish? No. You cannot save everyone by destroying yourself. You can care, you can support, you can listen, but you are allowed to have your own life. Your happiness does not betray another person's pain. Your growth does not insult someone else's struggle. And your boundaries do not mean you've stopped caring. Sometimes the healthiest thing you can model is the person who knows how to care for themselves. Now, if you're entering a season where things feel unexpectedly lighter, don't immediately become afraid that something bad must be coming. This happens to people who are accustomed to stress. They experience calm and think, what am I missing? They experience happiness and think, when will it disappear? They receive love and think, when will this person leave? They become successful and think, how long can I keep it? This is the nervous system remembering old uncertainty. But you can teach yourself something different. This moment is good. I don't have to ruin it by predicting the ending. I can let something good be good. That sentence can be deeply healing. You don't have to wait for loss before appreciating love. You don't have to wait for failure before enjoying success. You don't have to assume every peaceful moment is temporary. Enjoy what is here. Stay present. And when it changes, you will meet that too. Perhaps the best chapter of your life is not the chapter where nothing hurts. It is the chapter where you finally know how to care for yourself when something hurts. You become your own ally. You stop using shame as motivation. You stop using fear as your primary decision maker. You start using values. You start using discernment. You start using compassion. And that changes the quality of your life. So ask yourself, what am I doing today that my future self will thank me for? Maybe it's resting. Maybe it's setting a boundary. Maybe it's leaving a destructive cycle. Maybe it's learning. Maybe it's reaching out. Maybe it's finally beginning something you have postponed. You don't need to transform your entire life today. You need one honest action, then another, and another. Eventually, you look back and realize that the life you wanted was not created through one miracle. It was created through consistency, through the quiet choices nobody saw. And perhaps that is why your next chapter can feel almost invisible at first. Nothing dramatic happens. You simply become less willing to betray yourself. That is enough. Because when you stop betraying yourself, your relationships change. Your choices change. Your habits change. Your standards change. Your environment changes, and your life follows. So if you're currently in a difficult chapter, don't force yourself to believe that everything will magically work out. Believe something more grounded. I can make choices that move my life in a healthier direction. That is something you can act on. You don't control everything, but you have influence. and influence is enough to begin. You can choose what you tolerate. You can choose who you give access to. You can choose how you speak to yourself. You can choose whether you ask for help. You can choose whether you remain in the same pattern. You can choose the next step. And sometimes that's all a new chapter needs. One step, then another, until one day you realize that life doesn't feel like a constant battle anymore. It feels like something you are participating in, something you can shape, something you can experience, something you can finally enjoy. And maybe, when that happens, you'll understand why the title said, "You've entered the chapter where it all goes right." Not because every event goes exactly according to your plan, but because you have finally become aligned with yourself. You stop forcing what does not fit. You stop chasing what does not choose you. You stop proving what does not need to be proved. You stop carrying what does not belong to you. You stop fighting emotions that need to be felt. You stop living according to expectations that were never yours. And you begin choosing what is honest, what is healthy, what is meaningful, what is yours. That is a powerful chapter. And perhaps the final sign is the quietest one. You wake up one day and don't feel the same urgency to escape your own life. You're not constantly waiting for the next thing. You're not constantly trying to become someone else. You're here. And for the first time, here feels enough. You still dream, you still grow, you still want more. But you're no longer rejecting the present while reaching for the future. You can appreciate what is here while building what comes next. That balance is freedom. So don't chase the new chapter. Live the choices that create it. Protect your peace. Tell the truth. Choose relationships based on respect. Allow yourself to rest. Stop using achievement to prove your worth. Let uncertainty exist without making it an emergency. Ask for help when you need it. And when life gives you something good, don't immediately ask how long it will last. Let yourself receive it. Let yourself enjoy it. Let yourself breathe. Because maybe the chapter where it all goes right doesn't arrive with fireworks. Maybe it arrives as a quiet morning, a calmer mind, a healthier relationship, a stronger boundary, a decision you finally make, a habit you finally release, a version of yourself that no longer needs to be rescued. And perhaps one day, you will look back and realize the greatest change wasn't that life finally became perfect. It was that you finally became someone who could experience life without constantly fighting yourself. Someone who could love without losing themselves, give without becoming empty, succeed without needing applause, rest without guilt, set boundaries without shame, and walk into the future without demanding certainty. That is when the chapter changes. That is when you realize you are not waiting for life to become yours. You are already living it. And the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are.